Hi, I'm Abigail Gillespie, and I'm here with Lynnie Godfrey. Lynnie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for asking me. You're welcome.
So you've written a book that tells us about your experiences in the entertainment industry and lessons you've learned along the way, but you insist that your book should not be construed as a roadmap for success because there is no such thing. So what inspired you to write this book, and who do you help by reading it?
Oh, well, I hope to help anybody who has a desire to be successful in the career that they want to go into. Mm-hmm. And I think what I wanted to say was that there's no roadmap. There's no particular answer to how you are a successful star, how you are a successful teacher, how you're a successful doctor. But if you are consistent, if you are persistent, if you have passion, then you follow those things and then you will have your own level of success. And that's what I'd like to convey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you speak very highly of your hardworking parents and the excellent foundation that they gave you in life. What do you say was the most important thing you learned from them? What is your recommendation to young people who don't have the advantage of starting out with such a strong support system?
I think it is to really believe in yourself, believe that you can be anything that you want to be, not to give in to peer pressure, because usually those of us who are in any particular job, we're the outsiders. We're the ones that don't get a chance to go to the parties with everybody else because we have to study. You know, doctors have to study, lawyers have to study, teachers have to study. We study, you know. It's not to say that other people don't study, but we usually have to take large portions of our day in order to perfect our craft. And you can't be dissuaded from that. You can't be distracted from that. I think my parents taught me that. They taught me also to just stay the way they trained me to be the person that they trained as a child, to always be passionate about what you like, but to be polite. And treat everybody the same, whether they're famous or not famous. When someone stops you and they say that they've seen you, or do I know you? Do we go to school together? And I go, no, I think you just kind of saw me on television last night. You know, it's to have patience with those people and not to be arrogant about it. And that's one of the gifts that I think that they gave me. Yeah.
That's really great advice.
Yeah.
You grew up in New York City and you've lived many other places, but now you make the Lehigh Valley your home. How did you discover that you wanted to live here, and why does it work for you? And are more celebrities like Lynnie Godfrey likely to come knocking on our door?
No more celebrities. No, I tease about that. I always say that whenever I find a wonderful place, an idyllic place to live, here comes everybody else behind me. But it is a wonderful place. I have to give the responsibility of finding Pennsylvania in general to my husband. My husband was an executive at ExxonMobil for many, many years. And when he was finished with his stay there, when he was about to retire, we both wanted to move back to the area that we were both born and raised in, and that's the New York City area. So he gave me choices. He said, we're going to have to move into a state that is going to be really good to my retirement money, because he was a financial analyst. Right. So Pennsylvania came up, and we had some friends, Bruce and Pam Boyer, who live in Bethlehem, and we had visited them when we lived in Clinton, New Jersey. Right. And I remember how beautiful Bethlehem was. So I said, let's go to Bethlehem and let's visit it, and we did. We got an apartment here, and we stayed for a year, and then we looked for houses. And that's how we found this house. It took me a while, but I found it. And it's just a lovely place to live. It has the proximity to New York, so I can go and see my friends, see everything that I want. But when I hit 309, I take that deep breath, and I gotta go, I'm home, you know. So it's really, yes, you know, and you're on the road all by yourself. Nobody's there, usually some squirrels or some ducks crossing the road or something, and that's really lovely. And people say to me, well, you're a city girl. How can that really appeal to you? Because I know people who were born in New York and say, oh, I can't stand the grass. Well, I don't know, except for my family was born and raised in Florida, and we used to go there every summer. So maybe that was the influence that they had, and ultimately that's where I wanted to be when I got older. So,
right.
And enjoying in New York at the same time.
Well, we're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So you've done it all: acting, singing, directing, producing, and now you're an author. You also write about having to reinvent yourself on a regular basis. Can you elaborate on a few of those career turning points when you felt you needed to switch direction and try a different approach?
You know, it's very funny that you asked that, because I was talking to a playwright yesterday, Celeste Walker, and I was telling her, I said, you know, I get bored very easily. And she said to me, well, you're lucky because you can do more than one thing. I always think that actors or singers or anyone in this business particularly, you have to realize that there's a cycle for you. Mm-hmm. And after your 7 or 10 year cycle, you have to reinvent yourself. Right. You have to say, well, I'm not an ingenue anymore. I'm a leading lady. So let me now change my look. Let me soften myself. Let me kind of perfect my speech. Let me work on what I want to project on the camera or on the stage. And so that's a reinvention of yourself. And it gives the casting people an opportunity to then give you more choices for roles. If you are 35 and you're trying to play 19, it's not going to work.
Right.
You know, it's really not going to work. But if you're 35 and you've taken care of yourself, and you can do that 30 to 40 kind of range, you have the world at your feet as far as auditions are concerned. And that's what you want to do. It gives you more options.
Right.
That's what reinvention does. It gives you more options. As far as I'm concerned, is, you know, I like to sing a little bit, like I'm getting ready now to sing for my concert in August. And once I really am reintroduced to that, I'm having so much fun singing these fabulous songs. They're the best songs ever written, you know. And then when that's finished, then I go back and directing a piece that I will be directing in the fall. And then I'll probably go back to singing, maybe doing a holiday show at the end of the year. So it's that kind of versatility and diversity that helps me, you know, stop being bored, because I get bored very easily, mm-hmm. you know. So that's what I think about reinvention. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. You are also fond of saying, if I don't see it, create it.
Oh, wow.
Meaning that sometimes as an artist you need to create your own opportunities. Can you give us some examples of this, either in your own career or in a friend's career?
Sure. That phrase was given to me by the wonderful director Lloyd Richards, who I studied with when I was in college. And Lloyd, if those of you don't know, was the first black director on Broadway. He directed A Raisin in the Sun. And we were at Hunter College. And Hunter College at that point in time really did not have a lot of diversity in its student body. It didn't have a lot of men. It had just started getting men. And it had very, very few black students, and hardly any in the theater department. Mm-hmm. And as I began to have a career or relationship with Lloyd, he wanted to put me in productions, but there really weren't any productions that I was right for. Right. Because like the first thing he did was Rose Tattoo, which I love, but it's an Italian piece. So
right.
Not really my thing,
mm-hmm.
you know. So he said to me in a class one day, he said, well, you have to learn, if you're going to be an actor, you have to learn that you must invent things. If you don't see it, then you must create it. And I thought, well, I can't be in it all the time, so I can create the visions that I had, and that's what started the directing. And then, of course, what happens when you do a cabaret is that you really are doing something, I think, the best of what you do. You have the ability then to pick the songs that show off your voice the most, mm-hmm. that show that if you're an acting interpretive singer like I am, that show that you have that kind of gift. And then you have the ability to create your own imagery. And that's what's so wonderful about what he taught me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a wonderful mantra.
Yeah, thanks.
In your book, you mentioned some of the special challenges associated with being black in the acting world, and the fact that it's hard to break out of traditional black roles. And with recent events and the news focused on race relations in America, what can you say about your own experiences being a minority in the entertainment industry? Can you give us any examples of non-traditional roles that you've played as a black woman?
Well, yes. In fact, when I first went to Los Angeles, I remember being called for a role that was for Sybil Shepherd. Mm-hmm. And it was for a Sybil Shepherd type. My agents called me up and they said, look, we're going to send you out, and this role we think you're going to be really good for. But when they wrote it out, they said they're looking for a Sybil Shepherd type to play this computer. So I went to the audition, I walked in, and there was a whole room full of most beautiful, white, blonde women I've ever seen. And they all looked at me, and the person at the desk said, are you in the right place? And I said, yes. They told me this was a Sybil Shepherd type, right? And they said yes. And ultimately what happened was I gave the director and the casting person another interpretation. And that's how I got on the New Monkeys, because I became Helen the computer. Mm-hmm. And initially that whole role was written for someone not of my particular color. So it can happen. You can make that transition. You, again, have to believe that you can be anybody. Mm-hmm. And then you have to really convince those people in the room. I think the actor's job is to go in the room and not be be challenged by anybody else that's on the outer room, not be in competition with them. It is to convince those people behind the desk that you're the best person for the job, that they have no other choice but to give it to you. Then you'll get it. Then that's what you want to do.
That's really impressive that you're able to do that. Thank you. Recently, you've taken on more responsibilities being an advisor on the board of several local arts organizations, such as Arts Quest, here in the Valley, helping to ensure that arts flourish in the community where you live and that budding artists have opportunities to grow in a new role. In what ways is this a natural progression for your career, and why is it so important to give back to your community in that way?
Well, I started out when I was in high school. I was the first female president of my high school. I think the only one that they've ever had. And all of my friends thought that I was going to be Perry Mason. I was going to be political, And then I realized when I got into the business that that wasn't the best choice, because that choice of being very political can alienate you as far as jobs are concerned, especially if you are a black individual. So I started to just kind of pull back from that and quietly try to do the things that I thought that were going to impress people about me being secure about who I was, the imagery that I wanted. Now that I have a little bit more time behind me, a lot of more jobs behind me, I think that I wanted to come out a little bit more. And I wanted to say that there needs to be more recognition for women who look like me. I think that women who don't look like me, who might be a little lighter, who might be a little bit darker, who might be heavier, they do a wonderful job. But what I don't see in media enough are women that share my experience. I don't see it. I saw it when Felicia Rashad was in the Cosby Show. I saw that character. I used to say, yes, the problems that she used to have with her husband, I used to have Carl every week. I'm like, yes, I know exactly what you mean. I don't see that reflection now, and I think that that's an important thing, that we reinforce the images that we don't see. Yeah, I am doing in a week or so. I'm going to be doing a screening of a film called Middle of Nowhere, and Ava DuVernay directed it. She's a black woman who wrote it and directed it. And we're going to have a discussion about what you want to see on films about women, black images, all those things. That is also going to be in the discussion. And I think because I've come here and because I have a certain kind of visibility, that I can start a dialogue, because dialogue is very important. Dialogue means that we start to understand one another. And I think what happens is that some of the things that are happening now in our society is because people don't understand who they're confronting. They don't understand we have different cultures. We perceive things differently, and the more we learn about one another, the more we can understand, and maybe some of this unrest can be, subsided.
Right.
I think ignorance is the biggest problem that we have in this country.
I agree.
We really don't dialogue enough and find out about one another. Just the simple little things. Do you like salt on your collard greens? Do you like collard greens? And do you like kale? Oh, I like collard greens. Well, should I try kale? All of those things. Our cultures have those little bitty differences. And if we start with the small differences, then maybe we can get to the big ones.
Right. Right. Well, we might have to flip paper.
Okay, so we can cut it out.
So where do you see yourself 5 or 10 years from now? Is there anything you haven't done that's on your bucket list?
I really want to do, I think, theater in New York again. And I think I'd like to do some more television. I'd like to continue to sing periodically. I think that it works best for me to sing for about 3 or 4 months and then go on and do some directing and then coming back to singing. But those are the things that I think that I'd like to see myself doing. I didn't think I was going to do this when we were in Virginia. I just thought, well, I'm just going to subside and my career is going to kind of go float away. And that would be nice because Carl has created a wonderful world for me to live in. And then when I came here, I just wanted to do one night of music. I just thought, well, I'll just do one evening, And it was so successful, the one evening that I did with Dave Roper, that now it has led to all of this. So here I am again,
The world needed more Lynnie Godfrey.
And I guess so. It's another reinvention, It's another reinvention. As my friends say, now they're saying, well, you need to sing more. And I go, well, I was directing this, so now I can sing a little bit. And when you're coming to New York, and when you're going to do this? And when are you going to do that? So, I'm starting to believe that there's a possibility for me to do that. And I do know that I'm older now. There are people who are asking me, will I get on top of a white piano and raise my leg again like I did on Broadway? Yeah, I probably will. Because I can do it. I do it every day as an exercise. And that would be a nice revisiting of that moment. But it's not the only thing that I have learned to do all these years. And I don't want to even give the impression that I don't want to revisit that, because it is the thing that brought me to prominence. And I love it. It's a wonderful memory. But I also want it to be an extension, of all the other things that I've learned.
Right.
Yeah, so a lot of things.
Did you have fun writing this book, and how was it cathartic for you?
Well, at first I had to be convinced about it. Bathsheba Monk. What can I say about Bathsheba Monk? She is a very convincing woman. She came to me and she said, I think that you have a story in you. And I thought, well, if you want to write it, that's fine. But she said, no, you can write it. And I said, no. For years, I have been telling people, I can't write anything. No, I would be able to interpret whatever is given to me, but that's not my cup of tea. And she led me to believe that I could just start writing down my thoughts. And the first thing she said was, do you have an album, a photo album of yourself? And I thought, well, Carl gave me these big books, but I never put anything in them. And that's how it all started. I started chronicalizing my career through these books. And as I was putting those things in the books, the stories came back in my head. And so she is the incentive for me actually being able to even start thinking about writing a book. So that was the catalyst for me. It was Bathsheba Monk.
I hear she has that effect on people.
Yes, I think so. She's quite wonderful. She is.
All right, well, great. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk with us today. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.